Alrighty, so hopefully you should be very comfortable with the LC2A entry model where we wait for the fake break. Now, for those of you who can remember this lesson towards the end of the liquidity module in the technical analysis module, you may have realized that what we tried to say back here was that if there is no available liquidity in the leg to the left or available liquidity to the leg in the right, then very often our medium time frame POIs will fail. Okay, so what we've been doing with LC2A is waiting for that pullback inducement to be built, right? Waiting for the PBID, and we can do that on our lower time frame, right? So we have our medium time frame POI, and we just wait for that fake break to occur, get the liquidation, POI mitigation, and then hopefully we make tons of money, right? So as some of you have probably guessed, well, the other way in which we can now enter is with LC1, as we call it, and that is using leg inducement, okay? And that's really as simple as it is. So the first entry model you've looked, LC2A uses inducement in the pullback, so we only look at strong liquidations that form in the pullback. We don't look anywhere else. Now with LC1, we are allowed to look at that medium time frame leg to the left, and we are trying to identify available strong liquidity points within that leg, right? So the lows that broke the high, we use those liquidation points for our entry. Okay, so hopefully now in your mind, it's all starting to come together, right? So imagine that, well, let me put it this way. Once you get your POI mitigation, that's always going to be step one. We know that by now. You're probably sick to death of hearing me say it. We need to see that first before we can even be thinking about an entry. We get our medium time frame POI mitigation, we drop down to a lower time frame, okay? The way I want your brain to work is I want you to first look for LC2A every time, right? So once we get step one, you now want to ask yourself, okay, where is the strong liquidity? Have we had a strong liquidation? And I want you to just always look for LC2A in the pullback, right? So from the top of the pullback down, try and look to see, has there been a fake break liquidation? So obviously in a bullish scenario, have there been any lows within this pullback that have broken a high? Well, did this low break a high? No. Did this low break a high? No. Did this low break a high? Well, no, obviously not at that point, right? So there's been no fake break liquidation. Now, the reason why I'm telling you to look for that first is because it's the easier entry model to master. It's a lot less aggressive than LC1. So I basically view LC1 as like a bonus entry model. I much prefer LC2A. That's what I'm focusing on. LC1 is more aggressive, and it requires more experience to master it. So in the following lessons, I'm going to go into a lot more depth of when you should think about using LC1, because I personally only use it in a lot more rare circumstances. Okay, I'm a lot more strict of when I will even consider using LC1 because it's a much more aggressive entry model. So I do want to get that out of the way first. Now, assuming this is a scenario in which you want to use it, you'll learn that in the future lessons upcoming, but let's just for now assume that this is a good time to use it. Let's talk through how we'll do that. So we've looked first in the pullback and we can't find any strong liquidation, okay? Now, assuming this is a scenario in which you're happy to use LC1, where we're going to look for a sweep of lid, where do we look? Well, we look in the medium time frame leg to the left. Okay, so that's that M15 leg, or like your 1 hour leg, depending on what your medium time frame is. And this is when we can then look for any strong lows within the leg. So literally just looking for where there's like a pullback and a low. Sometimes there's going to be a lot, right? Any of these lows, we can use that as available strong liquidity points, right? If price hasn't traded through. So once we get our POI mitigation, we now know there's no strong liquidation here. We're looking for a strong liquidation in the leg. Now, obviously this is a simple scenario because there's only one low, but very often you're going to get multiple lows like this, right? So once we get a POI mitigation here, you go, well, what low do we take? Because technically all of these are strong liquidations. Well, we don't need to draw all of them on. We're just going to go and find the nearest one to the POI, right? We look left and just find the nearest one. Okay, boom, there's our liquidation of that lid to the left, okay? And now we have it. So a key point about this, okay, is at least at the time of recording, for me, it's valid to use lower time frame lid. Okay, so we look for lid in the medium time frame leg. We're looking at over here, right? But we drop down to our lower time frame. So I'll go down to the M5. So I'll look at this area on the M5 and I'll look for any M5 lows that are in this medium time frame leg, if that makes sense. okay? So once I get my M15, my medium time frame POI mitigation, I'll look left, and if there's like an M5 structural low here, I can use that, right? That's my liquidation, and then I take the entry with the buy stop above the liquidation candle, okay? So this is quite aggressive because I would say in 90% of occasions, roughly, when you get your POI mitigation, if you start looking left on your lower time frame for lid, you're going to find it. There's almost always going to be a lower time frame low here. So which means that you're pretty much always going to get an entry if you use lower time frame lid, and you're using this for every scenario, which is why I'm saying this is a lot more aggressive. And I only use this in very, very specific scenarios, which again, we'll get into in the next lesson. So I'm just trying to make it clear that this is a very aggressive entry model. So if you don't have the experience of when to use this, you can get yourself in a lot of trouble. Okay, so you have been warned. So what you can do is, instead of using lower time frame lid like I do, you may want to decide that you only use medium time frame lid. Okay, because in theory that should be higher probability than using lower time frame lid. So what do I mean? Well, when you get your POI mitigation and you look left for any lows here, any strong lows, it must be visible on your medium time frame. So for me, that means I would need to see an M15 low here. Okay, because sometimes what you'll get is you'll just get like one straight line and there isn't a medium time frame low, but when you drop down to the lower time frame, there is one. So if you want kind of stricter rules and let's say a higher strike rate, you may want to only put in your plan that it must be medium time frame lid. It must be visible on your medium time frame. Okay, so that's why I put in brackets, have a rule here where you need to decide whether you're happy to use lower time frame or it must only be your medium time frame lid, okay? In that medium time frame leg to the left. So POI mitigation on a medium time frame. If there's nothing built here to the right, so there's no LC2A, there's no fake break, then if it's a scenario in which you're happy to use LC1, then I'll look for a strong liquidation to the left, and then I'll take the entry. Of course, as well, only if it meets your validation rules. So you guys should know that. Go back into the LC2A module if you don't. Okay, we cover the two methods in there, the PBL method or the early entry method, right? So once we get our POI mitigation, we've identified a strong liquidation of lid to the left. Obviously, if the PBL has been mitigated and you use that method, then it's not valid. You would need to see either more lid down here get taken, or you would need to see a fake break built. Or of course, if it already gave an early entry, if you use that method instead, then it won't be valid. Okay, so make sure you understand what those two methods are. They're covered in the LC2A module, and just pick one, right, if you want to use them. And it's the same rules. Just place your buy stop order above the candle until you get tagged in, right? So very simply, this is LC2A. We look for a strong liquidation in the pullback. Happy for that to be on a lower time frame for me. LC1 is using lid to the left. Again, I'm happy for it to be a lower time frame low if it's a bullish scenario. But some of you, and if you're starting out, I'd recommend just using a rule that it must be visible on your medium time frame too, and that in theory should be higher probability. Okay? Because LC1 is much, much more aggressive. So you're going to learn in the following lessons of when I consider using it, because it's in rare circumstances. This is like a bonus entry model for me. It's not my main thing I'm looking at, okay? So bearish scenario, same thing, right? Medium time frame, breaker structure to the downside. We're looking for shorts from our POI. So step one is always wait for your POI mitigation. Okay, step two, has there been a strong liquidation in the pullback? Well, have any of these highs broken lows to the left? Did this high break any structure here? No, right? It's a weak high, not a strong liquidation. Did this high break this low? No, not a strong liquidation. And at this point, this high obviously hasn't broken anything when we're trying to enter. So if we're happy to use LC1, this is then when we can start hunting for relevant highs to the left. Okay, we have a high here. Assuming there's been no PBL or early entry invalidation, then we can take the entry. Okay, as simple as that. So literally just looking for strong highs in the leg to the left, or strong lows in the leg to the left if we're looking for longs. Okay, let's dive into some real examples.